Good afternoon, all of you. So, the topic that has been given to me for today's talk is on the experiences in safety review and licensing of 700 megawatt PHWRs. So, the talk you have just heard from Hari Kumar sir was a little more at a high level. But in this one, we'll go into slightly more details because this is a very specific topic, specific review experiences of 700 megawatt PHWRs. Yeah, so this is a outline of 700 megawatt PHWRs, very similar to the 220 megawatts. Only major difference lies in the suppression pool part that is there in the 220 and 540 megawatt PHWRs, which are not a part in the 700 megawatt PHWRs. Rather, we have a containment spray system at the top. And these plants are co-located along with the Kakrapar Atomic Power Station Unit 1 and 2. So this is one of the old photographs of the Kakrapar site where CAPS 1 and 2 was operating, but CAPS 3 and 4 was a green field at that point. So it is, I just wanted to show you some old photographs and some history of the site. And this is today's photograph. Today's means actually today morning. I took this screenshot from Google Maps, where you can see CAPS 1 and 2 on the left hand side and CAPS 3 and 4 on the right hand side. One of the major differences between these 220 and 700 megawatt PHWRs are there are two NDCTs, one for each unit in CAPS 1 and 2, and but there are two NDCTs for each unit in CAPS 3 and 4. So this is a layout of the plant, CAPS 3 and 4. The orange ones are the reactor buildings, the blue ones are the turbine buildings, and the NDCTs that you have already seen. And this is the schematic, simplified schematic showing the two steam generators. There are 4 steam generators. There is one loop of PHT system that is shown here from the reactor. 2 primary coolant pumps along with 2 steam generators, and the steam from the top that is going to the turbine, and then turbine is coupled to the generator for electricity generation. So this is the current state of the units, KPP3 and KPP4. It is still under project stage, but the first biennial shutdown has been taken and it is nearing completion. And it has operated around 524 full power days till now, and its first synchronization happened in January 10th to 2021. First criticality happened in 2020, July 2020, and Unit 4 of Kakrapar, it is operating at around 95% full power. It has operated around 155 full power days, and it got synchronized on February 20 and 2024 recently, and criticality happened in December last year. So these are the key design features of the plant. It is a evolved design of Tarapur 3 and 4, that is 540 megawatt, but with some differences, like we have an interleaved geometry of feeders in the PHT system. Then there's a partial boiling in the coolant up to 3% at the coolant channel exit. Then due to partial boiling, there is a 6 degree higher PHT temperature at inlet and outlet headers. Then core flow is marginally increased. So core flow actually contributes to 5% increase in the reactor power, and 20% contribution happens because of the partial boiling. So due to partial boiling, pressurizer volume increases. There are 2 reactor outlet headers. I told you there are 2 loops which are interconnected so that flow instability can be minimized, and feeder sizing is also optimized because of the partial boiling. And the steam generator design is also modified to increase the drum height because of the more steam. Then reactor control happens up to 15% through the ionization chamber, and beyond 5% full power, there are self-powered neutron detectors that takes care of the reactor control, and both of these operate in the range of 5 to 15%. And bulk power estimates are corrected using channel temperature and flow measurements made on the primary side. And there is a regional overpower protection system, unlike the bulk power protection system in 220 and 540 megawatt PHWRs. Little more details. There are 12 fuel bundles per channel, and air-cooled DGs are there as a part of post-Fukushima measure, and primary containment is lined with the carbon steel liner. We'll go into slightly more details of these, so I'll skip here. This is a regulatory history of Kakrapar 3 and 4. The site evaluation report was the first document that was submitted to AERB back in February 2006. And immediately after that, there was a site evaluation committee that was constituted by AERB. Then design basis information was first submitted to AERB in May 2006. This design basis information is a part of siting review. Then preliminary safety analysis report, PSAR sections 1, 2, and 3. These are also a part of the requirement for siting clearance. So these were also submitted in 2006. And after these reviews were started and continued, and subsequently other sections were also submitted. But the first comprehensive submission of PSAR happened around 2009. Then the Project Design Safety Committee for Kakrapar 3 and 4 was constituted in May 2006. I think V.K. Gupta sir was a part of that committee. Then its scope was extended to RAPP 78 in December 2009, and it was further extended to GHAVP 1 and 2 in April 2015. So this PDSC for KPP 3 and 4, RAPP 7 and 8, and GHAVP 1 and 2, this PDSC held around 90 meetings, and just before the start of commissioning in August 2018, this PDSC was reconstituted as PDSC PHWR, and it is currently functioning, and it is responsible for design safety review of all 700 megawatt PHWRs. And we have held around 84 meetings till date. And based on the commissioning experience, the final safety assessment report of Kakrapar 3 and 4 was submitted recently, this month only. This is the multi-tier review process of AERB as of now. So we have a nodal division like Nuclear Project Safety Division and Operating Plant Safety Division. These are the nodal divisions that take care of this design safety reviews and licensing during the project stage as well as the operating stage. So utility directly interacts with the nodal division, and there is a tier 1 safety committee. Then there is a tier 2 safety committee, high level committees and advisory groups. So they interact at various levels in AERB. And these were the different working groups and specialist groups that we have had during the course of review of 700 megawatt PHWRs. We have around 19 working groups on different topics, and there were some 8 or 9 task forces. And other than that, there was a civil engineering safety committee, and it also had a few working groups. Then there was a standing committee on reactor physics, standing committee on C&I aspects. These were also helping the review of 700 megawatt PHWRs. So whenever we talk about the consenting process of nuclear power plants, these are the main consents that are given during the life cycle of the nuclear power plant. First is siting, which is for location of the NPP at the proposed site. Then construction stage clearance is divided into 3 parts: site excavation, first pour of concrete, and major equipment erection. Then commissioning phase is divided into 3 parts, again phase A, phase B, phase C. Phase A is without fuel, phase C is with fuel, and phase C is power raised from 0.1% to up to 100%. And during the operational stage, again periodic safety reviews are held every 5 years. limited scope and full scope. So as Hari Kumar sir was also telling, and other than these standard stages, there are also provisions of introducing regulatory hold points wherever the regulator feels feels a need. So if we see the regulatory permissions of KPP 3 and 4, the siting permission was granted in May 2009. Then site excavation happened in January 2010. First pour of concrete happened in November 2010, and major equipment erection happened in May 2014. These are the common permissions for both the units. Thereafter, the commissioning permissions are granted for each unit, KPP 3 separate, KPP 4 separate. So if you see KPP 3 related permissions, there were a lot of permissions like hot conditioning and associated hot tests, balanced light water commissioning, because this was the first 700 megawatt PHWR, so AERB decided to go in a cautious manner, and the number of stages were increased slowly. We were also learning during this process, and we took a cautious approach to divide the standard substages into more substages, so that we also learn during this process, and we are also able to regulate it properly. So then balanced light water commissioning, light water draining from PHT system, light water draining from the moderator system, then initial fuel loading, addition of limited quantity of D2O in the moderator system, then PHT D2 addition, bulk addition of D2 to moderator system, then first approach to criticality, and phase C commissioning. That happened in November 2020. And even after phase C commissioning, as I told you, in the previous slides, that commissioning is divided into phase A, phase B, phase C. So after phase C, it should have stopped, but we still took a cautious approach and divided the remaining part in a manner that operation up to 50% was allowed at once, then 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100. So every 10% we were reviewing the plant data, and after a thorough review, the plant was allowed to increase the reactor power by 10%. So this all happened for KPP 3, but if you see KPP 4, this learning that happened in KPP 3, that happened both utility as well as regulatory body, and these are the only stages that stage permissions that happened in KPP 4. So if you see various sub-stages that were there in KPP 3, they are merged here, and from June 2023 up to August 2024, all the permissions were issued for KPP 4. So the process was much faster in this unit as Unit 3. So these were the key challenges we have faced during the review process. If you see, the review happened back from 2006 up to 2024. Around 18 years have elapsed from the first submission to AERB till date, when the plant has been permitted to operate up to 100% full power. So there were various first of a kind systems and features in this plant. So there were no regulatory guidance available for review of those systems. So the review was highly dependent on the experiments that were carried out by utility, as well as various literature survey that we used to carry out from time to time. Then there were, being the first 700 megawatt PHWR, there were various issues that were encountered during the siting stage, design stage, construction and commissioning. A few glimpses of that I'll try to give you at the end. Then there were new and revised regulatory requirements during this period from 2006 to 2024, like the safety code on design was revised in 2009. Then the safety code on design for LWR type reactors that came up in 2014, but the technology neutral aspects of that LWR code was also required to be applied to PHWRs. So those were also to be seen. Then the siting code got revised in 2014. Then the guide D19, SG D19 on deterministic safety analysis that got revised in 2018. Then there were some radiological impact assessment related requirements that emerged in 2019 after a thorough review in AERB. Then there was SG02, that is a guide on ISI requirements, PSI as well as ISI requirements. So that came up in 2024, but the review was going on for a long time. And still we have some codes and guides that are under review, like for the consenting process, SCG and G1. And there are QA related codes and guides also under review. So while all of these documents are under review, we always try to ensure that the requirements of these codes and guides are, we try to incorporate it in the safety review to the extent possible. And during this period, there were many change of guards that happened at NPCL headquarters and at site. Almost everyone involved from the day one are no more involved from site at least, and headquarters there are very few people, those who were there back in the first day and till today as well. And the same thing happened at AERB also. At least 4 or 5 generations AERB has seen during this period, the change of various chairmen, vice chairmen, EDs, heads of divisions, etc. And during 2015, AERB's integrated management system also evolved. Actually, it got introduced in AERB system, and the most affected one, means not badly affected, but rightly affected, was the safety review and the licensing process, where the reliance on committees was reduced, as Harikumar sir was also mentioning, and the focus was on strengthening of the in-house competencies. So we relied maximum on the in-house review groups, and the committee's recommendations were of only recommendatory nature now. Then regulatory inspection also, earlier inspections used to be focused more on the issues. We used to find out the issues at the site, and then those issues were recommended to be corrected. But now the focus is on finding the systemic deficiencies, that why such issues have been found out, and why system could not take care of identifying such issues. Then COVID also happened during the commissioning of KPP3, and it posed great challenges during the safety reviews, but we came out of it very well. Then going into the technical details now, these are the first of a kind systems and features in 700 megawatt PHWRs, and as I was mentioning that we followed a rigorous review of experiments, safety analysis, literature, mock-ups and commissioning tests for review and acceptance of these first of a kind systems and features. I'll try to give you a glimpse of these. So PHC partial boiling, around 2 to 3% partial boiling is allowed from the 11th bundle onwards. We have 12 bundles in the coolant channel. From 11th bundle onwards, there is some partial boiling allowed. And due to this pressurizer volume increase and ROH interconnection, these things I already mentioned. This is something I wanted to show you. The reactor header size, it is almost the double of what was there in 540 megawatt PHWRs. Then PHC feeder interleaving. Now, if you see, unlike the Tarapur 3 and 4 core, in which we have again two loops of PHC system. The left half of the core is fed through one loop, and the right half is fed through the second loop. In 700 megawatt PHWRs, it is not the case. Every alternate coolant channel is fed from a different loop of PHC system. So because of that, there is a benefit that you get in terms of the positive void coefficient of reactivity. Then there is a containment liner. So 6 mm thick carbon steel liner is there in the containment of 700 megawatt PHWRs, and the leak rates because of which has reduced drastically. So if you see the unlined containments of 220 and 540 megawatt PHWRs, the leak rates are around 0.3% per hour. But in case of 700 megawatt PHWRs, the targets are 1% per day. So this is a photograph of prefabricated ring liner. The ring liner was welded right at the ground, and then it was lifted through the crane and put it on the containment. So this practice was adopted in KPP 3 and 4, and it gave a lot of benefits during the construction. And this is a schematic of passive decay heat removal system. What it does is to maintain the steam generator inventory. There is a remote manual valve at the bottom that is to be opened, and it cools the steam generator and internal reactor in case of station blackout condition. So this is how it is arranged inside the reactor building. So that is a schematic of a small PDHRS. Then there is a containment spray system which actually removes fission products, and it does the containment cooling and depressurization as well, and substitutes a few systems that were there in 220 and 540 megawatt PHWRs. Essentially, there are two pumps at the bottom, and then through HX it goes to the top of the containment and sprays. Then there is a super heavy concrete that was introduced for the first time in 700 megawatt PHWRs. It has a density of 4.2 gram per cc. It is used at FT room and access tunnels. Then there is a mobile transfer machine that improves the design of fuel transfer by eliminating the shuttle transfer station, shuttle transport tube and transfer magazine. And it also eliminates Z2O from the fuel transfer system. So I'll just show you here. This is the fuel transfer room, and at that end you can see the machine, which can be latched to on the left side. There is a new fuel magazine, and at the bottom there is a FM vault, so it can exchange the fuel bundles between fueling machine and this mobile transfer machine from FM vault south and north. And then it can pass on the fuel bundles, spent fuel bundles, to the spent fuel storage bay. So a single machine works from, this is a mobile transfer machine. Then there is a containment filtered venting system we have in the containment, which operates at around the design pressure of the containment. As it's an additional safety feature that is provided in the containment. It is to be operated only after ensuring that hydrogen in the containment is less than 4%. Then there are passive recombiner, catalytic recombiner devices, which are not required in case of DBA, but in case of the beyond design based accidents, they start working when hydrogen is around 2%. Then these are the post-Fukushima safety upgrades. There was a question around how 220 megawatt PHWRs will be applicable, will be introduced now. So there are, this Harikumar sir was trying to answer that there are various post-Fukushima upgrades that have happened in most of our nuclear power plants, and there are external hookup points for various systems. Then there is a containment filtered venting system, passive catalytic recombiner devices. Then there is an automatic seismic trip that has been provided. Then air-cooled DGs are there. Then there are additional mobile-driven trailer-mounted pumps, fire tenders, submersible pumps at SRPH, the safety-related pump house. Then hydrogen and steam concentration monitoring system has been introduced in 700 megawatt. Then there is a severe accident parameter monitoring system, which is there inside the on-site emergency support center. that gives details of the critical parameters of the plant. Then real-time online decision support system is also introduced. Then there are various issues that were encountered during siting, design, construction and commissioning that I've just given some overview. Do I have time to 5 minutes? So maybe just a few I'll explain you. Like there was a 3-zone concept that was introduced here. Earlier plants used to have 4 zones, but here in 700 megawatt PHWRs we have only 3 zones. So zone 2 of the earlier PHWRs that has been merged into the inactive ones have gone to zone 1 and active ones have gone to zone 3. So we have only 3 zones now. So end shield thickness was reduced to facilitate higher size feeders because of the partial boiling and ease of replacement of the single channel. So it was estimated that because of the end shield thickness reduction, some dose will increase inside the FM wall during the shutdown period and as well as during the operating period. But now whatever data has been collected from KPP 3 and 4, the dose inside FM wall during shutdown as well as during the operating reactor is 6 to 7 times less than what was estimated. Then there is a common main control room in 700 megawatt PHWRs. Then shutdown cooling pumps and heat exchangers, they were earlier there in pump room. They have been brought down in the accessible area so as to have better maintainability. Then there was some shortfall in exclusion zone. Those were managed well because of this district road passing. Then there was a dam break analysis that suggested lowering of the roads in 3 areas of Kakrapar. That was done by the state government in coordination with NPCIL. Then this is the low trajectory turbine missile zone. The earlier design that was submitted to AERB, it had some of the areas that were inside the LTTM zone of CAPS 2, but now everything is outside other than one NDCT. But because of the 2 loops of service water, it doesn't actually hamper, it doesn't actually affect the core cooling. Then there were some issues related to construction. I will skip these. In commissioning, also there were some issues that were efficiently resolved as a part of commissioning review. These are some of the photographs, FM walls, turbine building that you can see on the right. Then these are the main control room with the fuel handling control panels also. Then this is a photograph of Gorakhpur, Haryana Anu Vidyut Pariyojana 1 and 2, where a fire water pump house is there on the left side, and on the right hand side this geotech investigations are going on before starting the first pour of concrete. Then this is a photograph of Kaiga generating station 5 and 6 for which excavation is nearing completion and first pour of concrete is about to start. So in the NB area, nuclear building area, the left side you can see some excavation almost towards the end, and the main plant area also you can see on the right. So that's it. This is a photograph of Kakrapar right now, means the 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 reactors. Thank you.